Good day, Gabriella Nandi. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
So, a bit. Let's get to know you. Let's get to know you, what you do, and why you decided to go into this line of business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I am a physiotherapist.
Okay.
I currently own the Health Hub, and the Health Hub really came about because of my profession. So I've always been passionate about really the body, to be honest. That's how I started. So basically when I was younger, and that's what I meant by it has been a dream of mine since I was really young, because when I was younger I was really interested in the body and medicine and healing, and I first thought I wanted to be a doctor, but then after like experiences I went more towards physiotherapy. And so once that happened, that's when the concept of the Health Hub came to me, because then I thought, how can you make physiotherapy more holistic? What other services go with physiotherapy that can complement it and provide a more holistic package for your patient? And so that's when we decided to add exercise therapy, massage therapy, nutritional therapy all in one, and hopefully even with time we can add more treatments and more options for people. So pretty much my passion is lifestyle, health lifestyle. I did my master's in public health, and that gave me more of a boost in health promotion and prevention of what they call non-communicable diseases. So that has been my passion for the last 3 to 4 years, is because you find that, like we're talking about earlier, obesity on the rise in many African countries, and so you find that actually we are moving away from our main causes of death being infectious diseases and more towards non-communicable diseases, things like strokes, diabetes, cardiac problems. So you find that all of these, the main risk factors are lack of exercise, poor diet, and bad habits. So when you see that, and especially because in Africa we tend to think, oh, that's a Western issue, not ours. And so you find that actually it is a big problem here, because you find when doing my master's, they introduced us to like a double...
It's a big problem. It's a big problem on the African continent.
Yes.
Why so?
Why so? Because you find that actually, because we've been so focused on infectious diseases, which are still prevalent in many African countries, you have a double burden of disease, where you have mainly the low income, people still struggling from infectious diseases and diseases like malaria. Then you have the middle to high income, who are starting to be affected a lot by the non-communicable diseases like strokes, heart disease, diabetes. Yes, and the reason why I say it's a big issue is not that it's not a big issue in the rest of the world, but it's also awareness, understanding that actually in Africa, you find when you talk to people, most people think it's a Western thing, like cancer and all these non-communicable diseases are a Western problem. But actually, it's becoming more and more of an African problem. And I can't remember the figures, but we're finding that the projections forward, they're actually looking at Africa being the lead in non-communicable diseases, and it rising even more. Yeah.
But how is that possible when we are not the continent with the deepest pockets in terms of spending power?
That's the thing. So you find, like, for example, right now, the people with the most non-communicable diseases, especially diabetes, are in India. And India has a huge population of low-income earners. But what you're finding now is because food is more easily accessible, and an unhealthy food is more easily accessible, low-income people are actually misusing it more, and high-income are actually more aware. So they're able to afford the organic stuff, the stuff with less sugar. So you find that high-income earners are actually in a better position to place themselves to access for good healthy food.
So good. That you're basically saying good healthy food items are cheaper. No, are more expensive. While unhealthy food items are cheaper.
So two things. So not that they're more expensive in general. So there's many factors. So one, access is increasing to unhealthy foods, right? And unhealthy food doesn't have to just be processed sugar. It can be that I am just eating a lot of carbs. I'm just eating a lot of rice, potatoes, and not mixing, not having vegetables, not having a balanced diet. And then also, let's say organic fruits today in most African countries, you find are slightly more expensive to access, because let's say like in Rwanda, with farmers having very small land, majority of people are using pesticides, and pesticides have been linked to cancer, and cancer is an uncommunicable disease. And so unless I have the knowledge, the understanding, and the capacity to look for healthier options, then I'm less likely to do so. And sometimes actually you can find that healthier options are more accessible to me, but my knowledge and my awareness of knowing that I have to eat a good range of food, and not thinking that eating is just eating potatoes and this and alcohol and all that stuff, you find that actually that is what creates a problem.
So how did you begin operations? How did you begin operating the health hub? When did the idea come about, and when did it turn from hobby to an idea to full implementation?
That's a very good question. So to start off with, I would say it has been a journey whereby I knew this was my destination somehow. So when I was in the UK working as a physiotherapist, I was trying as much as I can to learn outside of physiotherapy. So I did like a nutritional diploma, I did a sports massage therapy diploma, I would learn a lot of different courses online. When I was in the hospital, I would get leaflets and information on all the other services. I knew that when I came home, I would have to end up doing a lot more than just physiotherapy. So with that in place, I was almost setting myself up to start the health hub. Then when I came back, I actually had only come home for holidays. I was meant to go back to do my master's in person in the UK. And then my parents have been my biggest supporters, and they have been people who've believed in my dream since I was really young. And because they're both in business, they always believe in working for yourself. And that's one thing that they've really been pushing us to do. So when I moved back home, I told my dad that, my plans were to go back, do my master's, continue working. And he's like, why don't you just start? I know you're thinking of doing this in a very, many years from now, but why don't you just start? And I thought, it's impossible. I can't just start. And he's like, let's just have a look. And then somehow, God just somehow put everything in place in a way I can't even explain. And we were able to find this venue for the health hub at a very cheap price because the owners had some issues. And then we started. It took 4 years to complete, but we started. And we started renovating, we started, giving ideas, and for a good 2 years, I was just in construction. And then as we're going on, more ideas would come. So it started out as just a physiotherapy center. And then I thought, well, physiotherapy is a young profession here in Rwanda. Not many people know what physiotherapists even do. Why don't I add services that people are already aware of, comfortable with, that will bring them in and then we can teach them about physio, then we can assess them. And so I thought, gym goes really well with physio. I will need a gym with physiotherapy. That's how that started. And then slowly, I got feedback from other Rwandans on what they're looking for in a place. And I found the one thing that's missing is a place that has multiple services in one. Because many people would go for one thing, just for physio in one place, and then let's say you lose track of them. Whereas for here, once you're done with physio, we get you started on a gym membership with a trainer that has been trained by a physiotherapist, and then they can keep going and they can change their whole lifestyle. And so just by feedback and God's grace, if I'm honest, it just kind of slowly came together in a way I can't really explain. But the dream and the goal had always been there.
Interesting. What would you say? What would you say some of your challenges has been? Some of the challenges you faced trying to make this dream into a reality.
So the main challenges when I initially started was I've spent most of my life not in Rwanda, just coming for holiday. So there was a lot I had to learn regarding everything. So dealing with construction workers, knowing where to source products.
Different mindsets.
Yes, different mindsets. Also just knowing where to source information on like business and just everything. And initially it felt very overwhelming and it felt almost impossible. And even just language barriers were there, and it obviously improved with time, but all of that would increase my frustration and it would just make it feel like it's an impossible task. Other challenges we faced were obviously practical challenges like access to finance. There would be times where we would have to stop for like 3 months because of that. There would be things that we needed to start off with that we couldn't afford. So that prolonged the process and made the whole thing last many years. But other than that, everything else was pretty straightforward. I think the only other thing regarding like equipment, like finding stuff, it's really hard because we don't have like manufacturing capacity here in Rwanda. But then importing things is a headache. It's a huge hustle. When you're importing things first, like getting it over here and then getting it through customs, it takes forever. The process is arduous. It's very expensive. And for someone who is starting a new business, it can almost collapse your business if you don't have something in the back. Yeah. Yes.
And your eye points, your eyes. What are your eyes? What are your eye points since this kicked off?
My highs?
Yes, since this kicked off.
Very good questions. So my highs have been getting to know my full potential. So because of not having access to like a lot of finance, we did a lot of stuff ourselves. So for example, I became a construction manager.
Really?
Yes, and so now I can. If someone had a construction project, they could hire me and I could do it.
Seriously?
Yes.
Interesting.
I became my own designer. I didn't know I had design skills, but somehow when all the designers were charging me so much money, my mom is actually the one who pushed me to do it myself. And so I started doing research, and somehow I was able to create a space that I love and everyone else loves.
Basically, necessity is the mother of all invention.
Absolutely, well said. And even I became a web developer. I did my own website, and the list goes on. So these are things that I just had never ever anticipated I'd ever do.
Someone listening, I'm trying to play the angel's advocate here. Someone listening would wonder, is Gabriella saying all this because is Gabriella saying all this, or is it that she's tight twisted with money because you became your own web developer, you became your own construction manager? People will say probably you are stingy with resources. You didn't want, because that was not your field, you didn't want people to
the reality is,
okay.
It was just too expensive.
Okay.
Literally, I could not afford it. And I got to a place where I was almost begging people to just help me at a slower price. And you'd find that when you'd go to someone who's willing to do at a cheaper price, the product comes out not so good.
And inferior, not the quality.
Yes. And so then it was like, okay, I still can't, because it was still a lot of money. So I'm not going to spend a lot of money to get poor quality. And I genuinely cannot afford the prices that the designers were charging me, the web developers, they hit you with bills that you just think, this is impossible. And so every task that I ended up doing myself, before doing it myself, I would stop and I would panic and I would think, this is never going to get done. And then I would just say, well, my mom actually would just tell me, just do it yourself. And within then I started believing in it. And I said, okay, let me try. For example, with the web development, I just went on YouTube and I found lots and lots of content, literally teaching you from A to Z on how to do it. And so I just started. And then when I start something, personally, I put my all into it. And so when I started, I just became obsessed with it. And I would just like go on and on and on and on. And then the more I did it, the more I learned the benefits. Because now that I did my own construction work, I learned to really value the property. I learned to know what's the problem. If I have a plumbing issue, if I have an electric issue, I know where everything is. And so even though it was hard, it was such a great learning experience. And I can't recommend it for everyone, but
not everybody is built
I'm not sure. But what I can say is I would recommend it for anyone who is willing, because I learned so much about my space and I was able to put a lot of my mind into it. So when I would get designers, they would come and they would have all these ideas and they would be nice, but it wasn't my vision. And it was hard to steer them towards your vision.
Basically, they are not in your head.
Exactly. And because I'm also very particular and I know exactly what I want. And so I can be hard to work with if you're a professional, because I'll be like, no, I want this. And they'll be like, no, my years of experience tells me it's this. So yeah.
Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting. So how was starting the business been tremendous opportunities? What are your future goals for the Health Hub?
So starting the Health Hub has exposed so many opportunities, all in the health sector for now. One, the more people interact with the hub, the more they tell us more of the things they need. So they'll tell us, oh, it would be really nice if you had this. It would be really nice if you had that.
That's feedback.
Exactly. So just within the Health Hub itself, it has so much potential of adding more services and more value to what we're giving. But in terms of the wider future, I'd obviously love to be able to reach more people. So because we're here and it's a physical location, we can't reach someone in Uganda or someone who just lives far in Rwanda, just out of Kigali. So you find that if I could have, in the future, maybe have more health hubs in the country, or even just do outreach, maybe have some days where we meet up with people, visit people in their offices, just to educate and, teach them about living a healthier lifestyle. Yeah.
And have you also thought about, probably with what you've said, probably also having an extension of it online, virtual?
Absolutely. That would be incredible. We want in the near future to start like a YouTube channel, to be very active online, give free information, physiotherapy based and just health related. I think that would be very useful. And then if someone needs extra advice, they can come to seek our help. But I find that with a lot of my clients, the first few things I tell them they don't know, and it makes a huge difference to the problem that they have. So I figured the more we do an online, the better. Hopefully with time we'll do that.
Thank you very much, Gabriella, for your time. Lovely conversation.
Thank you too.